Welcome, impactful parents. Today we're going to talk about how does competition negatively and positively affect children. Should your child be in more competitive environments? Hello, my name is Christina Campos. I'm founder of The Impactful Parent, and I help parents of school-age children who want to be one step ahead of their kids to turn their chaos into connection with their adolescent. I'm a mom of four, a teacher that's taught every grade from preschool through high school. And today I help moms and dads like yourself to navigate that exhausting, confusing, frustrating, but rewarding world of parenting. So welcome to The Impactful Parent. And today I have my co-host with me, Rodrigo Bravo. Rodrigo is a co-parenting mediator out of the state of Texas. He's a parenting coach and he's a dad of two boys. Rodrigo brings a dad's perspective onto the Impactful Parent stage to give you even more expertise and an added perspective to our parenting topics. Thank you for being here today. Our discussion video today is a Gary Vee post taken off TikTok.
Telling a 6-year-old that it's just a game, who was born with the gift of being an alpha and on fire and competitive, is the worst thing you could do as a parent.
Wow.
Watching parents that are wildly well-intended systematically suck out the magic of a kid who was born a magician is devastating. And it's people up, because if you're successful in sucking out competition of an alpha 6-year-old, if you're successful in those 12 years that you have them in your roof, you've put indifference on a pedestal. And so what you've done is you've taken someone who was destined to do some really good, and you've actually put a kid into a place of thinking things don't matter. And when you don't think anything matters, and you don't think anything's worth anything, you go down a very dangerous road. Competition is one of the great traits in society, and we must, at all costs, stop demonizing it.
All right. I am excited to talk about this today. If you're listening, I'm a little sick, but I'm here to do this podcast. So I was a competitive kid and I played tennis competitively, traveling around the state to compete. And I feel like competition helped me so much in life. It promoted skill development, it boosted my self-esteem, it taught me resilience, it taught me teamwork, goal setting, even sportsmanship. I learned how to lose and get back up again. But I know not everyone looks at competition this way. Many people and parents are afraid of competition because it also has negative effects on children. Um, Things like increased stress and pressure, negative self-esteem if they're not doing well, because some children may develop low self-esteem or those feelings of inadequacy. And I know that some of my peers um, gave up on competition because they got burned out. And I certainly did too by the end of my senior year in high school. It is one of the reasons I did not choose to play a collegiate sport because I was just burned out from all the competition. But competition can also cause unhealthy kinds of rivalry, like jealousy and resentment, which can also lead to cheating. So I know that there are two different sides to this. Gary Vee in this video, of course, he's all about competition because that's what drives this dude. Like, that's what makes him go and be the successful man that he is. But my personal opinion, I can't help to lean toward his perspective and see the good in competition the way that Gary Vee does. Um, Now, in this podcast, I'm going to try really hard to stay neutral and talk about this on both sides because I think it's important to figure out, you know, do we have a kid that we need to put in competitive things and what are the benefits of that? And then the other side of it, there are some downfalls to being very, very competitive and ways that parents definitely take things overboard. So I'm pushing myself today not to talk about only the good of competition, but also the bad of competition. And I'm going to try to not be so biased. But Rodrigo, what were your initial thoughts and views about competition when it comes to kids? Is it good? Is it bad? And are you a competitive guy?
Yeah, I personally am a competitive person in the sense that with myself, and I think that's really the most important key to competition. How are you doing compared to yourself? I'm one of those guys. I don't necessarily compete against other people. I don't mind competing against other people. I like winning, all that good stuff. But I really, how am I doing against myself? And I think that's kind of the values I've instilled and what I try to do. However, I do feel that, and I will say I am biased like you are, that I feel competition is a good thing. There are a lot of good, healthy things that competition can really bring out for kids. You mentioned a few of them already. There's learning, right? Learning how to retain information, things of that. Physical fitness for a lot of competition. I mean, you were in tennis. When I was in high school, was in cross country, basketball, etc. Social skills. Kids learn how to, really socialize with other folks, teamwork, cooperation. It helps with their self-esteem, motivation, healthy mindset, stuff like that. Right? And so we want. I feel like we should be encouraging competition. I think competition is good. However, it's when we delve into like bad competition, or I think it's called toxic competition, where it's like really like just not good behavior, when it's unhealthy, when we force it on our kids, when we kind of ascribe to this win at all cost mentality, and force our kids to kind of accept that, hey, competition is everything, winning is everything, and losing is bad, super bad, and this and that. Or when they're forced to compete. I mean, I think we all, when we talk about competition with kids, probably the biggest thing for parents is those parents that are yelling at the softball game at the umpires, right? Where the kids, come on, man, what are you talking about? That wasn't a strike. What are you saying? A strike? Oh, you're foolish, and they're just all over the place. And it's like, okay, bro, did you bring your kid to like play ball, or did you come over here to like relive your past glory in high school? And so I think that's kind of, I think we all know that those are the pros and cons of competitions and what we're trying to avoid. Probably what we're really discussing is like, what's the right way to do that, right? What are we trying to encourage in our kids? And I think that's good, Christina, that you are actually taking a very neutral approach, even though it's your kind of natural state to be competitive, because our kids are different. My kids, for example, my oldest son, he's competitive. All right. My youngest son is competitive as well, but only in certain things. He doesn't try to outgun everybody on everything. I don't know. How are your kids? Are your kids pretty competitive all around?
That's interesting because I was gonna ask you, do you feel like competition is good for all kids, or is it only good
Mm.
for some kids? And my kids, um, I think they're very competitive, but I do think I instilled that in them, and their dad too. I think that that's something that inadvertently, I didn't even mean to, but you just do. For example, are you a family that plays board games and or any kind of game, video games? And when you are and you have a young child, do you win? Do you win no matter what? Or do you let them, score some points on you? Do you let them do certain things? Like, there are so many families out there who do play board games and they are lenient on the 7-year-old who's playing, "Oh, just let them, it's okay, they can just jump over, the red square and go to the blue square." That drives me crazy. I'm so not that parent. I'm so competitive that I'm like, "No, um, I'll just keep beating my 7-year-old over and over and over." But the value to that is that actually when they do beat me, they know it's a real win. Um, but I will also say it does cause a lot of tears. It does cause a lot of, like, just bad feelings where the kid may not like doing something because they never win at it because I refuse to give in. Like, so I do see the bad of it. I don't know. I think that is why my kids are so competitive. I inadvertently kind of passed it down.
Well, yeah, I think that's just your natural state of being, right? And you're that way, and kids pick up stuff like that. Remember, I'm a big promoter of, like, learned behavior, right? Your kids are gonna learn the behavior that you do. So if you're a clean person, more than likely your kids are gonna be pretty clean, or they're gonna be neat and all that stuff. If you're a mean person, your kids are gonna start developing kind of these mean kind of habits or whatnot. But if you're a competitive person, just by nature, your kids are likely to pick up those kind of competitive habits. I know that my oldest son is pretty competitive because his mom is pretty competitive, and she really instilled that, like, no, you gotta be first, and you gotta do this, and you gotta do that. I again, I'm one of those parents. I was like, hey, I just want you to try, just try, and I remember clearly, when little Rodrigo was in baseball. I wouldn't get mad if he didn't hit the ball. I didn't ever. That was never like an issue for me. But I know that it was an issue on the other side. Or he didn't catch the ball. Come on, this and that. I just thought it was kind of like, I didn't really like that. My youngest son, same thing with him. And I remember very distinctly, I would always go like, just swing, Papa. I just want you to swing. That's all. And my poor son would not swing. And, like, I just wanted him to, like, to try. Like, I didn't expect him to hit the ball or anything like that. I just wanted him to try. But again, learning what your kids' behavior is, what their personality is, how they're gonna react to those situations is pretty important to kind of gauge how you should react to that. I think too many times parents, they impose their own feelings or their own bias onto their kids. And I think it's really important that you step back and say, "Hey, is this really what my kids want? Is this really what my kids need?" I'm not saying that it's not good to instill healthy competition. I'm totally for that, and I think you're for that as well, Christina. I think we understand that there's a lot of good positives out of healthy competition, but I think what we do need to check on ourselves as parents is to make sure that we're not instilling any toxic traits that come with competition. For example, the little T-ball dad, right? Or showing our kids that cheating is okay to win, and stuff like that. I love that example that you gave earlier, where you said, like, hey, you know what? We're playing board games, we're doing this or that. I'm not gonna let you win. I think that's funny because I was the same way too. I never let my kids just win, just to say, like, oh, you won, right? This and that. No, I'd beat their ass. I remember we
No, it's so funny. I'm laughing because same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hell no, I will beat your ass. You go learn how to beat me. You're not gonna just beat me. Two classic games that my boys and I would always play were Wii Legends, Super Smash Brothers, and Mario Kart. Super Mario Kart. And my boys and I, we would pick our character. I've had this character called Game and Watch. My kids hated my character. They said I would, smash on the buttons and this and that and blah blah blah. We'd play against each other and I beat them. And my son would, I mean, my son would get really mad, really, really mad. I say, hey, you gotta learn how to beat me. Same thing with Mario Kart, and I learned how to play those games because I was anticipating them coming on the weekends to play me. Anyways, I feel like you said, right? When my kids would beat me, they just had this great sense of accomplishment.
Oh,
Like, they
it's like
really
nothing
worked
else.
hard. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was amazing. They loved it. And I think teaching them that hey, if you work hard at something, you eventually meet that goal. It was very rewarding for them. Another game that my son and I would play was Call of Duty, Call of Duty 3. And we would play and we'd have a great time. And my son and I, we would team up on competitions and try to do these waves of, like, of characters that would come through. And it was just good, healthy competition between he and I against, zombies and against, whatever it was. But it also created these bonding opportunities, and I would never get mad at my son unless he played hero on Call of Duty Modern Warfare, where he would go out and try to gun everybody by himself. and then he would get shot down, and then he was like, "Oh, come resuscitate me," and then I would have to like find a way to like, yeah, it's just, oh my god, I'm getting mad just thinking about it because I would tell Samuel, "No, Samuel, don't do it," and then he would just go here. Anyways, but it was great bonding moments too, and I think that's one last mention that I want to do about competition. It can be really great bonding moments for you and your kids. If you do it healthy, if you do it the right way, you and your kid have a great time competing, whether it's against each other, whether it's together, or you know, coaching or anything like that. Because these moments create kind of those tension, that tension, that the hardship, and then also that satisfaction, you know, that reward when you do accomplish something, or in defeat when you get defeated or you lose or whatnot. It creates that, you know, you can go over there and tell, hey, you gave it your best shot. You comfort them, you make them feel better. So these are great opportunities to create great bonds when it comes to competition, and I think that's something that we should definitely note, that you know, when it occurs with competition.
I feel like there are not enough parents out there playing young board games with their kids, and I'm talking about Chutes and Ladders, and then as the kids get older, of course, the ultimate challenge board game, Monopoly.
Monopoly, yes, yes.
Everybody has
Of
a hard
course, of
time with
course.
Monopoly. But you know what? It's like you said, you know, these games just promote so much skill. It's patience. It's not screaming and yelling. It's not taking the board and throwing it up, and you know, those are skills and emotional control that your children need to learn at some point. And I do think games do that. And I'm glad you mentioned a lot of video games because video games get such a bad rap in parenting, and they don't have to. It could literally be an amazing, you know, thing to bond with your child, and parents don't look at it like that. And it's a shame because I think that video games can be used for the good and really help bond. And you talk a lot about bonding with your kids through video games all the time. And I'm glad that you mentioned it even here so that parents who hate video games and just look at it as such a negative, maybe we just need to join our kids in the video game, you know, sit down with them, play with them, and start, you know, flip our mindset on that video games are all bad, and maybe try to pull something really good out of it instead. Now, are the benefits of competition in childhood universal, or are they very based on the child's personality, do you think? So, in other words, could I take a shy child that avoids conflict and still have them reap the benefits of competition? Or will it just stress the child out and cause this unwavering anxiety, which is not what we want, obviously? Um, so does the stress and anxiety in some kids outweigh the benefits of learning the skills like teamwork and resilience and goal setting when they can learn maybe those life skills someplace else?
I think when it comes to our kids' personalities, we got to find out what works best for each one. I think it's not unheard of to take a shy kid and then they become extroverted or they become, you know, competitive and XYZ. You could also have the other thing, right? Where you have a competitive kid and, you know, they don't have a great time in competition and they become introverted or they, you know, they become reticent. I think most importantly is, you know, that we do build good, healthy habits with our kids. You know, we don't know, we really don't know what our kids are going to be when they're young like that. It's super hard. We always try to ascribe these, you know, these roles to our kids when they're already really young. You know, yeah, maybe you could tell if a kid's going to be a talker, you know, if they're going to be an extrovert or an introvert. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But who knows? You know, you never really have a clear indicator as to what route your kid is going to have. One thing I wanted to mention that is related to this is one word that I didn't like in the video, where Gary says, you know, an alpha, your kid's an alpha, and this and that.
Mm.
You know how I feel about that type of language, right? And I think that's really important to kind of point out in this particular video because we don't want to go around, you know, ascribing your kids as this or that. Because honestly, not only are you putting a burden on your kid, but you're setting yourself up for disappointment. You for your kid not reaching your expectation level. Assigning like your kids an alpha when they're 7 years old, honestly, to me is even weird. I don't even like. I really don't get that. We want our kids to kind of grow into their own phase, whatever type of personality they're gonna have. More power to them. But whether they're going to be an introvert, an extrovert, whether they're going to be a type D or an I or S or a C on some of these tests that they can give out, right? Who knows? You don't know that right now at this age. You really don't. And so I kind of had a little issue with that, right? But besides that, going back to your question and how that relates to the two, I think it's really critical that we understand kind of like how our kids are developing and kind of help them with that and help them make sure that hey, let's put them out there in competition, see what they like. Maybe they don't like baseball, they hate baseball, this and that, and then you confuse it for them not being competitive when in fact you put them in a different sport, or better yet, you let them choose a sport. Hey, what are you interested in? Oh, I'm interested in basketball, and they play basketball and all of a sudden they're super competitive. That now they're interested, now they're playing, they practice afterwards and so forth. That's what happens whenever you kind of try different things, and also when your kids have a stake in the matter, when they get to choose what they want to play. I've know that I've talked to a lot of my clients, and they ask me that. They go, "Oh, I'm thinking of putting my kid in football. Oh, I'm thinking of kidding my." And I always just ask them. I said, "Does your kid want to play football?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, 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 of course." And I said, "No, no, no. Did you ask your kid if they wanted to play football?" And occasionally I get a question like, "Nah, I didn't. I mean, they just I assume that they want to play, or they told me." I said, "There's nothing wrong with that. You just got to make sure to let them know, like, hey, give them the table and tell them, hey, what would you like to do? And if they choose football, then go for it. Not a problem with that. But if you give them the table and they may say like, well, I don't know about football anymore. That's a time. That's an opportunity to talk about it, see what's going on, and really kind of get into what your child is looking for, and possibly even opening up the doors for healthy competition in their lives."
I love that. Really, what you're talking about is the role that parents are playing to ensure a positive and healthy competitive environment for their children.
Mhm.
And those are the things that we need to check the boxes off when we're trying to cultivate these skills. Um, I'll add to that and say that, I'm a big fan of the board games when the kids are little, and it's okay that your child can't handle loss right away. That's a learned skill, and it's a really tough one to really master, that when you lose, that you try again, and that, you don't get upset and you don't flip the board and you don't run off and things like that. So to give your child some grace and be like, "Hey, they're learning this skill still." And sometimes I think it gets so frustrating for parents that they stop playing the board game. I know it happened to me. One of my kids, um, man, I just over and over, unless he was winning, it wasn't any fun to play with him. Like, so I wanted to quit. But I guess I'm saying, parents, don't quit. I mean, you gotta keep reiterating those skills again and again. We keep trying to suck it up and give them another opportunity to make the better choice, when they lose, or, when they're losing, or when somebody cheats on them, and, um but as parents, we're the facilitators of those lessons. And we gotta step back sometimes and remember that this isn't personal. And I think that's really hard, especially if your child's playing a sport that you love. I'm not gonna lie, Rodrigo, I was actually really disappointed that out of all 4 of my children, none of them decided to play tennis. And all of them at some point played it for a season, tried it out, but I was so heartbroken when none of them decided that that was their sport. Because that's my sport. I love this sport, and I wanted them to have the same experience as I was having, get all those benefits that I had growing up, being competitive. Um, I also feel like tennis is a lifelong sport, unlike football or some other very contact sports. This is a sport that they could play their entire life. And as for health purposes and even networking purposes, golf is that way too in my eyes, where it's a sport that you can learn and actually benefit from even in business, because as they get older, they can use golf as, you know, part of the boys club type of thing, but it's a reality of that sometimes sports are used in business transactions. So I was just heartbroken. It's like, why? I have 4 kids, seriously? None of them picked up the tennis gene? And I had to check myself and say, "It's okay. It's just not for them." But that was really hard when you have that passion and then your kids don't reciprocate that.
That's bad for you. How did you like when you okay? So when you first introduced tennis to them, did they take it up very readily, or was it something that you had to kind of like, look, just give it a try? This and that. How was your like kind of your way with that?
Yeah, no, I actually just asked them. They were all 4 of them were very open to trying it, um, because my whole family plays tennis. Like, my dad plays tennis, my brothers play tennis, everybody plays tennis on the side of my family. So they've been around it, they've watched it, and they were happy to give it a shot. The heartbreaking part was when they're like, "No, I don't wanna continue. That really wasn't for me." I was like, "Really? But you didn't give it enough yeah, I wanted to be like, "You didn't give it enough time." Like, of course, it's difficult in the beginning. Of course, you're not gonna be good at it right away. And so it was super frustrating that I just wanted them to hang in there, and if I knew if they practiced some more and they got good that they would like it, but they never got over that hump of getting good at it to really, like, lean into the sport. And I think there's a lot of things that kids don't lean into because 'cause they're just not naturally good at, and so they give up and they try something different. Um, but yeah, that was heartbreaking for me. I was like, "How can how can none of them? None of them?"
I'm a big basketball fan myself, so I love basketball. You know, growing up with my boys, I just will play basketball with them and this and that. It was very funny. Rodrigo, my little Rodrigo, I mean, he's 24 now, right? But my little Rodrigo, when he was little, oh my God, he was on the 99th percentile. And Christina, I was so happy. Yeah, even when Rodrigo was born, he was just a solid baby. He was solid, pesado, macizo. That's the word they use in Spanish, macizo. Just solid like a wall. And you pick him up and it's like, ooh, like a bag of rocks. And then he continued that. He was that way the whole time. And then he was the tallest kid in his kinder, first, fifth, always the biggest kid, right? And I was thinking the whole time, like, oh yeah, I got me a linebacker. I got me this big wall of a dude. And my son now, he's 6'4" or 6'3", 6'4", 250. It wears a size 14 shoe. And I'm like, man. And my son does drag.
Yeah.
It's like you're like, yeah, I was like, oh my God. My dreams of having an athlete with him were gone pretty early on. But I was like, wow, I got this athlete here. And no, my son, no, he never got the cleats. He's got the high heels instead. My youngest, my youngest loved to play sports, but when he was little, he was a runt. He was even smaller than I was when I was in school. I was a small kid in the school. He was smaller than I was, and everybody thought he was like 2 grades below, or 1 grade below, and he was little, but he loved basketball. And I did have that experience of my son loving the same sport that I did. So I recall many times when Samuel and I would go out and play basketball, throw the ball around. He used to even carry a ball with him all the time. Basketball. Oh, it was great. Yeah, I loved it. We would play, after a while, he just kind of, figured like, okay, I'm not that great. So he didn't really play that much anymore. But he did develop some nice little tools in school. Anyway, I guess my whole point with sharing you those two stories is, sports competition, I mean, and sports and all that just took two different, completely wildly routes. And for my sons, sometimes competition meant robotics. Sometimes it meant, who can, play, Super Smash Brothers the best. Other times it meant something else. It meant like my son now he competes. And what does he compete? He competes in drag shows. And I think one of the best times recently, or at least with him, was probably about a year ago. I think it was a year and a half ago when he placed second at a particular show. And he just texted me, goes, "Oh my God, I just won second place. I can't believe it." And he takes competition seriously. There's a certain role to that. And he does his thing, and he's really happy with it. So I think even in that sense, I just let him pick his own role. I let him pick his own lane. And he decided to compete in that. And he's developed really healthy goals with all that. So and then my youngest, he loves to play video games. He's built solid friendships with folks on video games and is highly competitive. I can hear him all the time cussing, when he's in his room and he's like, oh, rah, 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 or, oh my God, that guy's camping. That guy's camping, it's whatever, right? But at the end, after everything's said and done, I think the most important thing that I can recommend folks is let them, follow their own path and see what they like.
I'm wondering, do you think that there's any cultural factors that influence the perception of competition being good or bad? We're both coming from a Hispanic, Latino heritage of competitiveness, which I feel like in general, our culture is pretty competitive. I don't know, but what do you think about that? Is there other cultures that aren't?
No, I think you'll find that in many cultures they do competition is pretty big. I think one culture that I'm familiar with, kind of just adjacently, in Asian culture, where they let the test scores and SATs and all that comes with it. The expectation levels that they have, that is just insane. I've seen it, from a firsthand level, working in schools, working with school districts and so forth. It's pretty wild, and you have that in other facets as well, in other cultures and whatnot. I know that in Latino culture, for myself especially, us guys, we're always put into stuff that oh, you're supposed to excel just because you're simply a guy, you're Latino, you need to be the strongest. There's always this machismo going on where the guys like, oh, I'm stronger than you, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that and this and that. It becomes crazy after a while. You're just like, wow, come on, like we gotta there's gotta be a better way to this. We don't need we don't necessarily need to be competing just to like do things. And then the other thing with the competition is a lot of times that competition would mean belittling your opponent or belittling those that didn't win. And that was bad sportsmanship and all that stuff. There's just no need for that. There's really no need for that. If you're the best, you're the best, and you get rewarded and etc. But to say like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and talk smack to the next person and like degrade the rest of the competition, yeah, I think that's a little over the top. But I do think that is something that's pretty common in Latino households, especially for men.
I think it's important to note, that this competition thing, it crosses over more than just sports and board
Mhm.
games. It's almost a lifestyle.
Yeah, it's something that's definitely been ingrained as part of also being the provider. In Latino culture, it's all about the providing, who provides the most. So there's this competition of like who has the most money and who has the biggest car or the biggest truck or etc. I
Do
saw
you
that
feel that
firsthand.
pressure? As
Huh?
a man, you feel that pressure that you to have the best car and
Yeah, so growing up, with my dad, right? For example, I think there was a lot of money trauma there, right? where my dad didn't have money before, and all of a sudden he has money. But one of the things that he would, kind of peacock about was the money, was the trucks, was the cars. And you see that a lot. I mean, I see that in my cousins, my uncles, where they're trying to outrank each other.
Yeah.
And they're competing amongst each other. Like, oh man, Theo just got a brand new truck. I need to get one too. Now, those times have changed. A lot of my folks don't really do that. But do I see that still among a lot of Latinos, especially my age or a little bit younger? Hell yeah. They still very competitive in that sense, where materials, or I don't know, material wealth, like a truck or like a car, or gold chains, or the things of that nature, where they have some type of kind of social stature, and they
Mhm.
use that as kind of competing against the next guy. I definitely don't ascribe to that. I mean, you see me, I got a sweatshirt and a hat. I don't have any earrings. I used to wear watches just because I was in corporate, and I do like watches, but that's definitely not my natural state. I don't have anything. I don't wear anything like that. And it's just kind of that competitiveness within Latino culture that we got kind of, especially the men, we get kind of suckered into. And it's pretty easy to fall a trap into. I mean, I definitely, when I was still kind of going through my mental health journey, and before that, oh yeah, I was definitely trying to, like, show other Latinos like me, like, yeah, I'm the one here, I'm the best one here, this and that. I even say this: there were times when I would use my bilingualism when I knew that I, had fluency in both English and Spanish, and I knew this guy didn't. Oh, there I am, talking in Spanish to the waitress, talking in Spanish to the cooks, rolling my R's, I just dumb things that really don't make any sense now, right? But back then I was like, sí, no, sí, tráeme un vasito de agua, por favor, tengo mucha sed. Y, nah, no seas tan perro, just dumb shit that, like, okay, why, and I was peacocking. I was trying to, strut my stuff, and competing against other Latinos and basically saying, like, yeah, I'm more Latino than you are. And really, it was just insecurity. It was a whole bunch of stuff behind that. Anyways, to finalize that, lots of competition among Latino men, especially, where we try to, because of these cultural constructs and these social norms that we've grown accustomed to, we end up doing ourselves, that we start kind of projecting to other folks. And it's really important that we understand that, because if not, then we become Latino men who become Latino dads, who then pass on those unhealthy competitive aspects to our kids.
I'm glad we're talking a little bit about some of that pressure that's not necessary. A part of competitiveness that's not, it doesn't have any really good value to it. It's just gonna, it's more like you said, insecurity masked as competition. But
Mm-mm.
I think that's something that parents should look out for. I want to end this podcast by talking a little bit about some more of those negative things that parents need to look out for. So hopefully they are parents that are going to play board games and video games and encourage their kids to do sports. But these are some of the things that I'd like parents to just keep an eye out for, so that you don't take that, all that good of competitiveness, and turn it into something that's not. And one of them you've mentioned already before, it's that pressure to perform. Parents may feel pressure to support and encourage their child to excel in those competitive activities, which can sometimes result in these expectations. Then now the kid's stressed, and even the parents are stressed because they put money into something, and now their kid isn't performing. You know, even sometimes we get them into some sport, and now we want them to get a scholarship, and we need them to, get a full ride, or just to be wary of the pressure to perform that's going to come from a parent. And that's a slippery slope, because I think our kids feel a lot of pressure already that we don't really need to even add that. It's going to be already there. So we have to be mindful that our kids are already gonna be feeling that pressure.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree, Christina, and I think that's really important. That's why we have those conversations, right?
yeah,
Where we talk to our kids and we ask them like, "Hey, how's it going? What's going on?" And really, because man, everything's turned into a competition now. I mean, you see
everything.
the SAT scores, you see schools coming in, everything turns into a competition. I have a friend who's going to law school. She's picking her law school, and there she is studying for the LSAT. There she is, ranking the schools, going to visit them, this and that. Well, no, I got to do this. I mean, everything's competition, and I get it. You're trying to set yourself up for the best possible outcome, but how's your mental health? How are you doing? Are you doing what you want to do? Are you going where you want to go? Things like that nature. I think what you just said right now was really, really important, and I really want to stress it. Checking in with your kids, I think that's really important to kind of like talk to them about that and see, how they're doing and how's that affecting them and this and that. Because a lot of times we feel like, oh, kids will be able to handle it, and kids are very resilient, but it doesn't mean that they're very resistant. Meaning they'll handle the mental pressure, they'll handle peer pressure, they handle all kinds of stuff, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't seep in either. It doesn't mean that it doesn't grow into something maybe unhealthy.
And another thing that I feel like parents, need to watch out for is balancing those priorities and time management. And what I mean by that is we'll get our kids into sports or anything, it could be robotics or whatever they're into. And then the training, the schedules, the competitions, we can so easily overwhelm our kids with all the things. Now they have long days and they don't have an opportunity to be kids anymore because their focus is too narrow and we've piled it on too much. And just to keep checking in on them because they may love it. Maybe that's what they want, but also they also may wanna scale back. And I think it's easy for our kids to get overwhelmed with all the competition and all the practices and all
Yeah.
the homework. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. And my son, my oldest son, he went to a pretty good school, a high school. Again, competed. He had to have the best test scores, the best this and that. He ended up getting into second choice high school. And of course, he was disappointed and whatnot. I was like, hey, that's great, man. You made it. The homework there was ridiculous. Just homework and pressure and pressure and pressure. Anyways, at the end, my son almost felt like he didn't really enjoy high school. And that sucks. That really sucks. I'm not the type of parent to say like, you should take it easy in high school. No, I do feel like you need to put in some work or whatnot. But gosh, man, these our kids are being kids for such a short time now. They should be having fun. And sometimes fun to them does mean competing, doing different things, doing this and that. I definitely was in a variety of sports, a variety of school activities. I love doing number sets and math UIL, for example. I know it's a bunch of nerd shit, but I love math and numbers and stuff. I was also into chess. I was on the chess club and this and that. But I also did a bunch of sports: basketball, track, cross country. I just like doing sports, and so I was kind of competing a lot of times, and I liked it. I loved it, but I also remember being able to be a kid. I have a lot of great memories where I was just a kid, where I did fun stuff, I did dumb stuff, I did things that as a kid you're gonna do, and I just feel like sometimes we do put so much on our kids, including competition, that we don't allow our kids to be kids. And I really, really hope that parents out there kind of, understand like, hey, we should let our kids be kids and let them have a good time because, I mean, come on, who really wants to be an adult? This whole adult thing, I don't know, man. I think I got robbed on this. I was told that adulting was going to be, fun. And you're going to do this and do that. Nope, it hasn't been fun. It has. I'm lying. It's been great. But no, but it has been like, like when you're a kid, that time is so limited, and we really should kind of think about that, and especially for those parents that are out there yelling at the umpires and at the people. Okay, stop it. Okay, just stop it, please. You're embarrassing all the other adults there. That was my
Love that.
PSA, Christina.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we also explain that to our kids, the cost of being so competitive.
Mm,
And sometimes, as a parent, you know that your kid wants to be the best. So they're like, I need to be the best. So then you set them up so that they can be the best. But the best comes with such a cost. It's waking up at 6 a.m. and practicing before everybody else, and coming after school and practicing again. Like, if you're really, really that kind of person, your kid really wants to be that, I think we need to sit our kids down and be like, "Awesome. Here's going to be the repercussion of that. You're gonna get tired, and you're gonna have to miss out on this and this and this." And I think kids don't realize that, and that way they can make better choices for themselves,
mhm.
or at least go into a competition that, if especially if it's high level like that, with eyes wide open, saying,
Yeah.
"I know that I'm gonna have to miss the birthday parties, but I also know that this is really what I wanna do," instead of us as parents, because we're the navigators, we're the ringleaders of all of that. And I don't think we sit down and really communicate with our kids enough so that they really understand not only what they want, but the consequences of their choices on some of those things.
Mhm, mhm.
And of course, it doesn't happen very often. I don't think there's a lot of kids out there who are like, I want to be the next whatever. I mean, they say they do, but there's only a very small percentage that actually really do. Um, but it's important that we talk to those small percentage of
Yeah.
kids and be like, yeah, it's great that you want to get a scholarship, but do you know that this is going to be the cost of it? Well, this has been a great conversation. I feel like, we're obviously leaning toward competition being a really good thing, um, but yeah, I think it's important that we're aware that there are these negative setbacks, and
Mhm.
as parents, we're the ringleader of that. So
Yes.
as long as they're on top of mind for us as parents, I think we can navigate that pretty well so that our kids can be competitive in a good way and really gain all that great stuff that comes from being a competitive person.
Yeah, I agree, Christina. And I think in this, particularly in this episode, especially, I think your example of kind of not leading with your bias, but giving your kids a choice. That's so good. I know that was tough for you, and you said as much, and you love tennis. I've heard you talk about tennis before, and but you still said, okay, I'm gonna be the way I can be a better parent is by allowing my kids to choose, even if it's something that I particularly wouldn't want them to choose. And I think that's something that all parents could learn right now is that sometimes the choices that your kids make aren't going to be necessarily the choices that you want them to make. But as long as they're happy and you feel like, hey, they're on the right step and they're doing their thing, then you can accept them. So I just want to commend you for that. And I think that's really the most important lesson that we could all learn today is just kind of listening to our kids when it comes to competition.
Thank you for being here today. If you would like to reach out to Rodrigo Bravo for his co parenting mediation and coaching services, you can email him at rodrigobravo jr@gmail.com. Start your Impactful Parent journey by downloading the Impactful Parent app. The Impactful Parent app is free so that you can carry help, tips, and parenting resources right in your pocket. Download the app today. You got nothing to lose since it's a free download. So go to your phone's app store and search Impactful Parent and discover how you can step up your parenting game and become a more impactful parent. Remember that this episode is just a small part of what the Impactful Parent offers. Also available are online courses, parent support groups, coaching services, and of course, the Impactful Parent app. So go to theimpactfulparent.com to find out more. But until next time, you got this. I'm just here to help.